Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Empowered Pause. I am your host, Rachel Chinoa J. As always, before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about the Empowered Pause, which is brought to you by Speak Initiative. And Speak stands for Suicide Prevention Through Empowerment, Action, and Kindness. We are a peer support nonprofit organization that stands in the gap with people who are experiencing mental health challenges or who have had past suicidal ideations. Our mission here at Speak is to reduce the stigma around suicide and mental health care in the Black community by allowing our partners to speak, be heard, and live fully. So we launched the Empowered Pause in 2022 to hold weekly virtual space for anyone who may need a brief midweek check-in or a pause. Here we can connect, stop, and recharge with encouragement, empowerment, grace, and gratitude. So each week, our goal is to share information and experiences or ideas around journeying through this life, empowered and equipped to live healthy and fully. So today, I'd like to acknowledge that this week, the 10th through the 16th, is National Suicide Prevention Week. So within this magnified month of suicide prevention and awareness, this week, many organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention hold events that speak directly to suicide prevention. If you want to know more about some of those events from AFSP, feel free to visit their website at afsp.org. So the week started for me and many of us honoring and remembering those that we lost on September 11th. This is a heavy day for many people, and I actually found myself sitting in silence most of it, experiencing a bit of anxiety around the events of my life on that day in 2001 and since. Now, I won't go into details of what took place 22 years ago, but I can say that the trauma has become a part of my life. Recognizing this again on this past Monday, I had to remind myself that I'm a wounded healer. The first time I heard that term, I believe, I was at church actually, and Pastor Mike of FCBC in New York said it in a sermon, and it stuck with me, and I know it stuck with many others. I choose to do the peer work that we offer at Speak Initiative because I can still feel the pain of many different experiences that I've lived through. But now I know that I have a voice, that I can still make an impact in this world, and to show myself and others that we matter and that we can still live fully in spite of it all. I say all of this to say that you don't have to be perfect to help. You can advocate for awareness. You can volunteer for organizations such as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention or the National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is NAMI. And I mentioned those organizations last week, and we'll go into them in the coming week with some of the events that are actually going on. But there are many ways that you can help raise awareness, from taking workshops to raise awareness in your family and in your community, to participating in a community walk, which I'll talk more about in a little while. So if you're interested in politics, then you can advocate for more laws for funding for mental health care and for suicide prevention and awareness for the education. Now, if you're not one of those people to actually do any of the things I mentioned, you can still help. You are still what we call here at Speak a listener. You may be supporting someone who you know or may not even know that they're struggling, but listening is one of the first steps. I'm going to share with you a few phrases that can signal when someone may need help. Now, this is not all the time that you hear these phrases, that the person actually is in danger. Of course, you're looking at behaviors, you're looking at circumstances and things of that nature, but some of the phrases can be very vague. But if you're listening and you're observing, hopefully you'll be able to help where you can, right? So the first phrase is, it's one of those days, right? And I'm sure many of us have said that it's one of those days. I'm just having a bad day. But sometimes that bad day can be compounded if that person is already in a cycle of trauma, or they're in a crisis, or whatever may be going on, right? Don't leave me is another statement that some people will make. It can be made jokingly. It can be, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to go home. I don't want to be by myself. Or it can also be a person does not want to be alone with their thoughts, because sometimes those thoughts can get really heavy, right? A third one is, and I use this a lot, it's loud in here. I don't use it a lot, but I mean, I've said it in my space. That speaks to hypersensitivity and sometimes anxiety, that there's so much going on internally that the person cannot absorb anymore from the external, right? Are you busy? Can I call you? Can I talk? I mean, can you talk? These could be more direct than others, but they're still very subtle, because they're not saying that the person is in need. They're asking about you, in the hope that if you respond to that person, you will do the same thing and ask about them. And maybe they will be comfortable enough to explain and open up and tell you exactly what's going on. Now, I know sometimes people will say, well, you could have just told me, right? We hear that a lot. You could have just told me. It's easy to talk to me. They could have just come to me and just let me know. But we have to remember that we're human beings, and being vulnerable isn't easy for some of us, right? A few statements that are not as subtle but can still be considered code words for a person that may be struggling with suicidal thoughts are, I'm exhausted. And that can be followed by extreme emotion that you usually may not see with that person. The statement, I'm done. And that can be sometimes followed by reclusiveness, excuse me, reclusiveness or rejection towards even basic social interaction. Like a person will stop speaking and saying good morning, hello, goodbye, yes, no, things of that nature. I just want to disappear is another. I've had enough. I don't know if I can keep going. I can't do this anymore. When, excuse me, when everything seems hard, not just the moment at hand, but everything in that person's space seems hard, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that hearing these statements alone is an instant alert, but when you know someone and you know that they may be having a hard time with life in general, regardless of the circumstances, and we hear these types of statements and see behaviors change, then we can exercise that heart muscle, or I call it compassion, and start a conversation. Speak is not only an action word for the person who is struggling, but also for those of us who can support them. And again, here at Speak Initiative, these are our listeners. So I started this evening almost 9 minutes ago, sharing my experience this week with recognizing that as the human I am, I still struggle sometimes. But the awareness that we can be and are wounded healers, helping and sometimes hurting in the same moment, I want to encourage you to listen. Listen to those you love. Listen to those in your community, and maybe you can be a healer or even a wounded healer along with us, right? You can make a difference, and you may actually save a life. My final point for this evening is that asking someone if they're thinking about suicide does not make them suicidal. It can open up a much needed conversation. There are workshops and education available for you and your community about how to have these conversations, and we'll actually be sharing some of those resources within the week. So if you are a speaker or a listener and need support, know that there is help out there, and we at Speak Initiative is just one of them. Okay. Before I go, Team Speak will be walking in the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Out of the Darkness Community Bronx Walk on October 15th. So if you're available and you would like to walk with us, come out, go to our events page on our website where you can actually register to walk or donate. And we'll actually have a special custom designed t-shirt that we'll be selling to support AFSP. You can find more information about that event and others on our website. As always, please react, comment, share this episode of the Empowered Pause, visit our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, rewatch this episode or any of the other episodes that we've published so far. And to learn more about Speak Initiative, visit our website, which is scrolling below, but it is www.speakinitiativesuicideprevention.org. I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. And until next time, take care.